And welcome to Alliance on the Move, the program where we share information on so many things relevant to Guyana and the development of our society. I have tonight joining me out of the USA, Dr. Vincent Adams, our advisor on all things related to the oil and gas sector, and chairman of the party right here in Guyana, David Patterson, former Minister of Public Infrastructure. And there are quite a few things I hope that we can get through in this hour. Guys, this evening, well, today we would have seen on the East Bank Road, persons going to Mary, trying to catch a flight there, running with their suitcases down the road. We have the situation, the new bridge across the Demerara River has been opened. And living across in Region 3, I must say traffic congestion has eased now that they finally, advanced the work on the road. The Natural Resources Fund, is it a fund for future generations, or are we seeing it being used as a slush fund for pet projects? And then there is the energy contract, the management of the energy sector, and of course something that the Guyanese electorate is watching closely, the horse trading among political parties. Guys, I would like us to talk a bit on this East Bank Road traffic. David, if I can pull you in there, I don't know if you saw the video. It is so sad to see persons trying to get to the Chedi Jagan International Airport. Yeah, one airline, thankfully they rescheduled the flight, but the confusion that causes, what's happening there, David?
So yes. I mean, I saw what happened today, but I was actually, I think last week, a recipient of that East Bank corridors time delay. I mean, look, in the run up to elections, the PPP pulled out all the stops, which is quite understandable. What I mean, that they did. So, but what they did is try to do every single thing in such a short space of time. So, and knowing, of course, that we don't have the capacity, we don't, I mean, the traffic management issues, we have all these issues there. So what they did, they awarded a contract to repair the East Bank Road. And the contractor, I don't know if he's on any sort of management or any sort of traffic management plan or everything. So he is working in various spots at the same time. So what it's caused is a choke neck. And it's causing these delays. What is normally done, and Vince would know this, is that you close off one side of the road, one carriageway, and you finish the entire stretch of that one carriageway, or a substantial stretch. You have traffic management, you have some lights, therefore, so there's a continuous flow of traffic. What's happening now, I mean, and it's not only the East Bank, there's the East Coast. I mean, wherever we have major arteries, at the moment, even the Lenin-Suzaik Highway, they're doing work, and I mean, of course, everybody's thankful doing the work, but it's unplanned and unsupervised. The dust pollution, I passed up there about yesterday last week, and the dust that is generated, they have the minimum dust control, that if you're going to do that, you have to wet the place, you have to put screens, total chaos. But that's the PPP, that's the PPP slapdash. And then when somebody like us come on and complain and say, well, this shouldn't be there, they say we're anti-developmental. Ladies and gentlemen, no one is anti-developmental, especially the Alliance for Change. But you can't just say that you're doing development at any cost. It has to be done in a planned, phased manner. Otherwise, it's just total chaos. And I do think that the Guyanese people deserve far better than that, And Beverly, I must finally say that, it's not that we don't have the capacity, technical capacity, ministries, and there's still some good engineers. There's several good young engineers, but they're not being given the opportunity to operate freely. The minister,
No.
who is a pastor. Come on, I'm not saying anything about the religion and those things like that. You know what I mean? But they complain that when they say things to the ministers, this can't be done. They feel as though their jobs are in jeopardy. So obviously, we can do better. We should be able to do better. I mean, and these guys travel, Vince. They travel, Beverly. They travel. They see how it's done. They see
Yeah.
that most of the work is done outside of peak hours. Peak hours in Guyana,
But
are from like 7 to 9 in the morning, 1 to 2, and then of course rush hours. And if you say to people, if you say to the Guyanese public, listen to me, we're starting work at 7 p.m. and we're gonna work through the night until 7 a.m. in the morning. Expect delays. People will adjust their schedule to that.
work around that.
Work around
Yeah.
that. I mean,
They
you
work
have
around
to leave
that.
home by 7. If not, you'll be caught up in the traffic jam. But no, this is just like a Wild West city.
Hey,
Yeah, and the same thing is happening on the East Coast also.
Yes, I know. On the West Bank around, mean that they go approach to the bridges and those things like that. I mean, unplanned. I see that how they opened the Heroes Highway. Now they're talking about building flyovers. But come on, how are you gonna do that? And when you do that, that creates another traffic situation. Unplanned. They didn't realize that the volume of traffic's coming over. But that's a PPP.
David, you make a very important point there. The planning, because they know how many vehicles come out every 3 months or 4 months. So within a year you're going to have so many more vehicles on the road. Where is the planning? You're doing that East Bank corridor again. Why are you not looking at an alternative route to the airport, to the Chedi Chagrin International Airport?
Well,
The whole idea or the whole concept of planning seemed to have been thrown out of the window. And in a minute, I'm going to come to Dr. Vince Adams in terms of planning for waste disposal. But this infrastructure, while it's absolutely necessary, I believe it could be done with less inconvenience. Your thoughts, David?
right. Look, I know Vince is always strong on this because I can remember though he has a little pocketbook on project management. And project management is what it is. You plan it and those things. But let's talk about the Heroes Highway. Let's talk about the approaches, the Schoonard Road. All of these roads, Beverly, are not being done by the Ministry of Public Works. They're being done by the Ministry of Housing. The design standards with which they're using falls way below the standards required from the ministry that would be done in the Ministry of Public Works or Infrastructure. When you design a highway, what we call a highway, you do a traffic count, and then we normally you design it for and you say the peak and a half or peak and a quarter. And peak means that when it's the maximum, and then you add on a factor. So normally, when I was in the ministry, we used to use a factor 2. So therefore, obviously, if we anticipate 10,000 cars will be traversing in this mile, we had to make sure that. And then, of course, the formula says that each car should traverse the mile in say 30 seconds. We have to ensure that we made the road big enough so that double the amount of cars can pass. But they're using so the Ministry of Housing, right, the central housing, but they're doing these things and they're using a design for internal residential roads. People in Guyana seem to think that because it's a dual cartway or because they can take two, that is designed for that. All they're doing is just making a normal design for a normal internal road in your housing development and doubling it. So it has, there are certain features that you have, the stopping distance, we calculate between turns, like if there's a turn off, how fast it takes a car to approach that turn off and the lights and those things like that. They do nothing at all of that. They just made it double, slapdash, and call it a highway. But that's definitely not a highway, not designed to be a highway.
Interesting. The science that goes
Yes,
into
behind it.
road
Yeah, they
construction.
bypass that up completely. So all these contracts, all the new things that have been done, it's been done by the central and planning. You check all the contracts, and they have not designed to the correct standard which we require in this country.
Okay, talking about standards, Dr. Vince, I want to bring you in here.
Mhm.
Um, the environmental aspect of what is happening in terms of waste disposal. We have some concerns here, especially when it comes to waste disposal along that Hags Bosch area in terms of the management of that site. The standards that were set in place by the Environmental Protection Agency when you were directed there, what has happened? Are you aware?
Well, before we get there, let me add and re-emphasize, because this here is very important in terms of planning. The golden rule is, which is the first rule that you learn in the success of any project, is planning. You know, people used to be mocked sometimes, even with the big, powerful United States government. Believe it or not, every single activity has a plan. Even for changing out a light bulb has a plan, because it could have some serious implications. Somebody comes, and it's not about the person is putting that system in place. Somebody may go get another job tomorrow, but at least you have that. If it's in a plan, you bring on a new person, the plan is going to be followed. It's that discipline. This this government does not know anything about planning. And it's not about the roads alone. This same bridge, this bridge, remember, they just they did not even do feasibility study for this bridge. You remember an environmental impact assessment. When we were in office, when I was there, we sent out, we wrote asking, we were going to be doing a feasibility study, not a feasibility study, an environmental impact assessment.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
we left office in what, August? I think it was August when the decision was
2020.
made. And the EPA had already advertised that we will be doing an EIA. Guess what they did? They went ahead and canceled it without even notifying the EPA. I know the engineers who wrote that thing, and they were shocked when they read that the government canceled the EIA. And we know what's happening now. We know on that bridge, the gas to shore project, we know the delays. Yeah, we saw that chaotic 5 o'clock, that 5 a.m. meeting in that whatever you want to call
Oh,
it.
that, yeah, that was a
And you
Seance.
hear all kinds of foolishness.
heads will roll.
Yeah, and a lot of corrupt activity came out of that, which was interesting. I was expecting some more 5 o'clock meeting, but I guess they learned their lesson, because they exposed the competence of the government. But this here is how they operate. And the only reason why they do this, Beverly and David, is because it's not their money that they're spending. They don't care. They've got a whole ton of money, and they're spending the taxpayers' money. It's not coming out of their pockets. They're feeding their friends and family with it. They're the ones who ripping off the people with this money. So they're free to do it. When we see the lantern posts falling down, what could be more basic than putting up lantern
Yeah.
posts? And those are falling. When you hear Minister Edgell, and David is in Parliament, when they grill him as terms of why our project's being delayed, that road, that cemetery road, I never forget this. The man said that it's because of the spirits. The spirits in
Supernatural
the
It's
causes.
Brenro.
supernatural.
Yeah, it did. It was the spirits in the Brenro who was who was delaying these projects. But anyway, yes, I read in the headlines that suddenly the government is trying to say, well, okay, we're going to be building we're going to be doing some modern day landfills. Well, let me tell you something. When we were in office, in my short time there, that was one of our highest priority, because there are no landfills, there are dump sites all over the country. I mean, I don't know if you've been up to Linden to to see. I mean, it was a disgrace to see what's happening in that land. Everybody goes and they dump it in that place by Amelia's Ward area. That Blue Water Lake is right next door to it. So there are no certified landfill. The only place we have is the Higgs Bush landfill. But the Higgs Bush landfill is not designed to take the kind of waste, the toxic waste that is coming in from Exxon. And when we were there, we did not approve. Exxon came to us with asking for approval for them to put that waste in. And we said absolutely not. That landfill is 6 feet deep, and it doesn't have liners. It's not designed. And guess what? As soon as we left office, they decided to approve Exxon they extended the landfill. So we putting a bunch of toxic waste into that landfill, which is close to the groundwater. And when people talk about groundwater, they think somehow that it's isolated, that you've got to drill a well before you access it. No, the groundwater is connected to the surface water. So at that level of that, especially that shallow, that water that comes out of the ground flows into those little creeks and the river. So when you think it's only the groundwater, it's all interconnected. It's all interconnected. So you're contaminating everything. Now, the other thing that we did, we set up a technical team led by the EPA, and we had what was the Mr. Bulkan's office? What was the office run by Bulkan?
With the communities.
Communities. We collaborated with them. We set up a technical team. And we looked at every single region, all 10 regions, and look at the areas. We went and we looked at all of the dump sites that are out there, and people are just dumping waste any place. David has been around the country. He has seen it, especially in water-laden areas, in those little swamps. They would just throw the waste there, and who knows what because some of the most toxic substances are on your kitchen sink. Chlorine-based stuff. It's very toxic. Chlorine is probably one of the most toxic chemicals known to mankind. And all of your cleaning agents are made out of chlorine. And when you just dump it willy-nilly and without any controls, who knows where it's going? So what we did, we had a plan to put a state-of-the-art or put state-of-the-art landfills all over the country. So now I'm hearing they're coming up with this thing as if, well, they are the ones, it's their ideas. Well, that's nonsense. We already had that on the table. So for you to come and say now that you're now starting the process, which is typically what they did. They abandoned everything, all of our good ideas that we put in place, and now wanted to let it appear as if, well, it's their new ideas and they've invented it. But that plan, we have a plan, it's at the EPA. As a matter of fact, the lady who was in charge, the environmental officer who was in charge of that group, she's still at the EPA. So don't come and tell us now that you're inventing something. We already had that, but I know what they did. They pushed it aside and now wanted to say, well, okay, we are starting a process. But
Vince,
Dr. Vince, yeah, go ahead, David.
What our viewers have to realize, because I could remember, is the difference between a dump site and a landfill. For a landfill site, I mean, you actually excavate and then you come with different layers. And you call it shades. You come with, so therefore it's almost like filters. So therefore, anything, so you have about 5 different layers of sand, soil, fabrics, and the idea is that anything that passes through these things, by the time it gets to the groundwater, it is purified. What they're doing is just simply trying to find an area that they can just excavate and clear and just dump.
And then fill.
Well, one of the key, and you're right, first of all, you try to isolate that landfill. So you have liners. You have like 3 liners, plastic liners, and then below that plastic line, you're required to have 50 feet of solid clay. We call it impermeable clay.
Right.
Below that. And then at the bottom of those liners, you have what is called a collection sump. So anything that passes through, you collect it in that sump and then you pump it out from time to time and you monitor it. So if you see anything in that sump, that is telling you that the liners are leaking. and you got to decide how to repair it. Now, to prevent the liners from leaking, the other important thing is to have a proper cap. When you're done with the landfill, is to have an impermeable cap. You cap it with a nice plastic, and then you put vegetation on top of it, so that, because you would only let leach it of that material if water goes through, because it's not going to leach by itself. So you prevent the water from going through from the cap. But landfills have to be monitored. Like I said, there's that sump at the bottom of those filters, and if you see any, and you keep monitoring it, you collect samples. There's a pump, and you collect those samples and you measure. That's the kind of landfill that we already had on the books that we are planning to do in all of the, without oil money, by the way. This was in 2019 that we were doing all of this. So we hadn't even started producing oil yet. But that was what we were going to be doing in our next budget. And of course, they took over, and what happened for 5 years? We would have been far gone with it, especially with oil money. That was a high priority of ours. We had already put it into our budget request for the next year, which was 2021, because there wasn't any budget in 2020. And now they're coming up with this brilliant idea that they think it's a brilliant idea, or they want to impress people it's a brilliant idea. We would have been finished with all of this. We probably completed a whole bunch of these landfills.
But guys, what you're talking, all of this discussion, it brings to mind for me the need for baseline studies. We have components coming in from Exxon. They're going all along our coastline. We have operations offshore. But we are not having baseline studies that would tell us the state of our environment, the marine life that we have out, on the shoreline, all of this. So we won't even be in a position where we can assess if we are better off or worse off, because we have no baseline studies to say we are starting from here.
Beverly, it's one of the most critical actions. That's also was in our plan again. It's there in the EPA. The documents are there, and the reason is it's all tied in. You remember our favorite topic that which is, guess what? The full liability coverage, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in order for you to, if you're going to hold Exxon liable for an oil spill, you have to know what existed before, because they would only be liable for what they have caused. So if there's a little spill, forget about the big spill, but let's say you're accusing them let's say you start seeing the ecology being destroyed, but you don't even see no oil spill, but it's just production, they're dumping water, and then you decide to take them to court and say, hey, you're doing damage to our ecology. Then you've got to know what the baseline was
exactly
before and see what it is now, and then you subtract the two. The difference between the two, those are the damages that they're liable for. So we had started, like again in 2021, our plan was to go out and get a consulting company that could do that kind of a baseline study. We even went further than that. There was a new technology. It's environmental ID, meaning that it's normally you have to go out in the ocean and collect samples. Mm-hmm. But what the new technology, it's an environmental DNA. So you've got like buoys out in the ocean, and you're collecting samples. So they're just moving around automatically, collecting samples and analyzing them and feeding it back. And what the samples of urine of specific animals, of the ecology. So you're getting real-time reading and see the changes, even the migration patterns of certain animals. Yeah. And fish. You see how the oil industry is affecting fish. So you can do it automatically. We sent, the very first conference was held in Florida. The EPA sent 2 staff members here, 2 engineers. So they were our 2 exports now in Guyana. And the next year, in 2021, the next conference was going to be held in Guyana, which was going to be a big deal with all of the export. It's called environmental DNA. So that we were going to use that technology where it was going to be much easier with it. They abandoned that. When we were in office, we became the ninth member of what is called IOPA, the International Oil Producing Agencies, which is the nations that produce oil. We became the ninth member, and they've got all kinds of resources. They were doing all kinds of research on this and decommissioning and everything else. I went and used my influence and connections with the U.S. to get us in as a member, and we connected, and we were getting free consultancy from them. As soon as we left office, they abandoned that. They abandoned that free consultancy and connection to the rest of the world and the technology to do these type of things that we're now talking about.
You see, for this PPP government, it's just extract the oil, get the money,
That's
spend the
exactly
money.
correct.
I mean, like, we're supposed to be having a natural resource fund, and for all
Yeah.
intents and purpose, this fund is supposed to be for future generations, because as a non-renewable, future generations must benefit from, the patrimony. But I don't know what is the state of the fund right now, because it seems to be operating as a slush fund for pet projects. David, right now they're talking about a new bridge across the Berbice River. The present bridge is not being used to capacity. Why should there be, at this point in time, another bridge or a new bridge across the Berbice River when we have no university campus at Linden or at Region 9?
Yeah,
The no bridge
Beverly,
across
Beverly,
the Quarantine River.
Beverly, this is all a question of money for the boys. And as Barbicians would know, that in 2018, the major shareholders, all private sector persons, Bobby Ramroop and his crew, they came with a proposal to raise the toll from what this was 2000. Of course, it's free now, and we're happy about that. But it was $2,000 in 2018. They wanted to raise to $8,000. When we took over, we stopped them from doing that. But what is important with Berbice, you have to remember, is the reason which they give why they wanted to raise this use toll. They said that they were not making money, even though $2,000 is the highest toll in the entire Western Hemisphere. That's per car. And they said that they weren't making money. When the government approached them to say, well, listen to me, let us take a major control in it. They wanted, if I can recall, they wanted something like $10 to $12 billion up front for the government stake. Comes the PPP. First thing they do, they're now back in. They have already said they're giving Bobby Ramroop and team $15 billion, right? Just so that they can make back the profit. And that's what a lot of money they use to campaign, because they give them some money early on in the year and they use it to campaign. And then they're coming to the Barbicians to say that you need a new bridge. You know what I mean? And where they want to put the new bridge. They haven't even done that study, because the original study when Ballas Needham did it, when they said, oh, you should build it down by Everton side.
Everton, yes.
Everton side is shorter there, you know what I mean? They haven't done it. They'll just come up a day and they decide, and they come in the middle of somebody's yard, we're going to put it here. And why? They have no program. I mean, I don't know if the Barbicians know. I mean, they tell you they want to build a bridge to the Suriname. I doubt that'll ever happen, because there's a lot of international issues related with that. Because the Surinamese claim that they own the entire river, right? So therefore, you building a bridge over their river, you know what I mean, is whose bridge it is. So that's one of the things. But they should, by now, if you want to be building a new bridge and there should be a master plan. Barbicians should be able to look and say, well, here's what's going to happen. They're going to build a new bridge from Ithaca to Everton. We're going to build a superhighway from there to Molson Creek. And we're going to be putting up this industry there. We're going to do this so everybody could plan. Not a PPP. piecemeal, piecemeal, piecemeal. So no one knows where they're going to build. They're talking about a deep water port. No study, right? And we do need a deep water port in here. I mean, the studies, and they have studies we under myself when we were there in the IDB, we did a comprehensive study. And you know what the study showed on the deep water port? That the best place to locate it is in Region 5. And the reason for Region 5, but of course, I mean, they don't want to tell their supporters that Guyana is surrounded by a sandbar. The coastline, you have a big, deep layer of sand and silt and those things like that, which reduces the draft. So therefore, no matter where you put it, you'd have to do a lot of dredging.
Yeah.
The place with the narrowest sandbar and draft and mud is off facing the Atlantic Ocean. Is the region the Mahaica coming all the way up to Maikoni area. That is the narrowest, that's the shortest. So therefore, obviously, it makes sense to put it there, and because wherever you go, we have to dredge. It's 25 kilometers of dredging to get to the ocean through the mud when you go to Berbice. It's only 12 if you go off with the Maikoni Region 5 thing. But it doesn't, so it makes economic sense, and it makes logistic sense and operational sense to do that. And there's a study there to prove that. But it doesn't, the politics in it. Right?
Yeah.
So they will do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, because Region 5 and Region 6 are very, very well interconnected, very short distances in between. So therefore, both of them would benefit from a port where it is supposed to be. You know, so that's the exact same thing. When the bridge in Berbice was being built in 2009, the harbor master for transport and harbor said that was the wrong location. You're going to cause silting up. You're going to cause, you're going to affect the fish migration. The fishermen could tell you how the channel changed since then. But the PP doesn't care that. I mean, but Barrett, Jagdeo, and friends, just build it where they want. They don't think long term. You know what I mean? They don't think that what is the long term future of it. So they will be building. They want to build a new bridge. They haven't told anybody. They're going to be paying Bobby Ramroop and all his private sector billions and billions of dollars, right? And say that's the money they owe on the bridge. No, they'll be rushing ahead with a deep water port where the operational cost, because everything you have to do now has to make it cheaper for Guyanese, and you just put it in not the most optimal location purely because of politics. And in another 25 years, another government will have to be forced to move it to the more optimal position because it's costing us just because of the lack of foresight now. We have to start making decisions. You mean future-proofing decisions. Unfortunately, the PP are not like that at all. They do a lot of vanity projects. You know, to short term.
Just spend the money. Money is there spent.
But you know that they work on a 5-year cycle, right? So the 2020, 2025, that's the 5-year cycle. So this not the second 5 year. They're back in office. They start to announce another new 5-year plan. No long-term plan.
No plan. They even used to have 5-year plan. They don't have any plan. They just wake up in the morning and get a brainwave. Look, typical example, David, which we've addressed over and over. The same gas ashore project that started with what? You know the number. It was $700-800 million.
Yes.
It's now about over $2 billion.
2.4 billion and counting.
And counting, tripled. And the only reason why that happened, there was no planning. That's why they're in court right now, because there was no feasibility study. They did not even do an EIA. By the way, this year that was even illegal in the contract itself, that they said that we've got to sanctify this contract. The contract says at Article 12 Article 12, that thou shalt do an environment and a feasibility study for any use of the gas. It says that, but they don't care. They're lawless. But then you try to use this whole sanctity contract as cover. The other thing is, That is the reason why we're in so much trouble. It's not only the delays. A contractor has us in the courts right now because of the soil conditions that would have
Yeah.
been picked up if we had done a feasibility study. But that's the way they're operating. It's just lawlessness and abuse of the taxpayers' dollars. While you don't want to give the teachers a little raise, even though we're the lowest paid teachers in the country, but you're putting all the money in your friends and families' pockets and wasting it in a lot of cases because it's not coming out of your pocket. That's the way that these people are governing. But I want to address this the NRF because this is very important that people have got to understand. Getting back to what you said, Beverly, this slush fund, they have total control, and you know how they operate when you put money in their hand. You remember on the Granger plan, Granger had a committee a committee, a board of whatever you call it, of about, I think it was like 20 or 22 members that covered the entire society, all the demographics of every community that you can think of. And they decided to get rid of that, and I think they decided to go with a 5-member board. They agreed, and David knows this, they had an agreement with the opposition, which was APNU, to have, out of the 5, to have 2 members of APNU on that board. And the day of the meeting, as a matter of fact, I saw that I was going to be one of those. They said that I wasn't a lawyer, and then the APNU said at the meeting, well, okay, how about Christopher Ram? They want to take Christopher Ram, so they ended up picking their 5 people. So they're totally controlled by them. They had no intention. They broke the promise. They had no intentions of having any participation of the opposition. So to get back to your point, so that is the reason the whole intent was to control it. You remember the Terence Campbell was on the investment committee, and he had to come out publicly. And
he went to court. I think he took them to court.
He took them to court, but that's the way they operate. Just it's an they're very dictatorial, and that's what we're living with. So they're controlling this fund, and nobody has anything. Well, a lot of people believe that that final 50 something billion that came out of it was for they spent an election.
Yeah, most of it. But Vince, there's a very other important point which we talk about. The law that they passed allows the minister to take out 98%. Ladies and gentlemen,
yeah, that's right.
8% of all the money that goes in for the year.
That's right.
The idea of a natural resource fund, as Beverly is saying, is that it serves 3 basic minimum functions. One is, of course, current development and developmental fund. 2 is stabilization, in the sense that if anything goes wrong, and 3
the prices fluctuate,
right, generation. And I want to address the one with generation, putting away for generations. You have to look at all we have to do is look at Trinidad. Trinidad was
booming.
The richest, and they used to flaunt it. You know what I mean? And they made the same mistakes in our lifetime. Same mistake that this government is making now. So when the oil production dropped, there's nothing left there for future generations. You know what I mean? One of these oil wells that will be there with 20-year life span. So in 20 years' time, we still be around. The oil that you think that is giving you so much money, it will stop producing. It's just like a oil well is like a bottle of water that you're using to straw and pull out. At some point in time, you'll reach the bottom, and then it'll be empty. That's an oil well. It's just like a bottle. And the reason you put an natural resource fund is when it's empty, that you still have savings there. In 20 years' time, we have a whole new, 58% of our population is below the age of 35, 45, you know what I mean? In 20 years' time, they'll be 65. The eldest person, 65, be younger. But we would have spent all the money that we gotten from oil, right? And they'll be back where we were. And it's our responsibility to be our brother's keeper. Our responsibility to put aside now. Be responsible. Put aside 15% of what we're earning, 20% of what we're earning. You put in a bank account, you get interest, you invest it in those things like that and so on. 20%, so therefore in 20 years' time, there's no oil, at least our children and our grandchildren will still be able to enjoy it. But no, they've taken up 98% of everything and leaving, ladies and gentlemen, 2% for your children. 2% for all our children and our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. If that's, as I find, is almost criminal and sad.
And to add,
Yeah, because if you think about it, go ahead, Dr. Vince.
so just to add to what David said, because this is important, a lot of people are believing that oil will be here forever. Okay?
Yeah.
If you even look at their projections, they're looking at all their projections for over a 20-year period for each of these wells. And it peaks very soon, very quickly, within 5 years, it peaks. And then there's a steep decline. And when the point at which they cut off is going to be basically how economic it is for them when it gets to such a low level. Now, on top of that, they're even exacerbating that by
They're
producing
exceeding, yeah.
above the limit that is in that design that developed that curve. They're producing about 40%, close to 40% above the design limit, which means that we could be, when they say 20 years, it could very well be like 15, 12 years. Because remember what Exxon is all about, making money and making it as fast as possible.
Exactly.
They don't care about our future generation and what they want to make as much money and get out to Dodge and leave us with whatever problems we have. But we do not have a government who's got that foresight and understanding, and especially to learn from other countries, as David mentioned, such as Trinidad. So we might be stuck, and 50 years is right around the corner, Beverly. 15, 20 years is right around the corner. And if we do not put those things in place, we're going to be in serious trouble. And they want to produce as much as possible, even though it's illegal, because the EIA and the permits says that you've got to produce at a certain safe operating limit. And then they're bragging about it up to recently. I think it's Rutledge got out there and said that they will be producing above this stupid nonsense about debottlenecking to confuse people. It's a fancy word. It has no meaning. It's in no permit. It's in no
technical there. No technical.
Nowhere. It's just to confuse people, to impress people somehow that they know what they're doing. That's just their trick. And this government, they're so damn inept, or they don't care. As long as they and their friends are making money, they really don't care. So they just let it go.
Vince,
that's one of the points I wanted to make, because if a child now is, let us say, around 11, now, writing their NGSA in another 20 years, they are now entering the peak of their productive life.
That's right.
And that is when you need the resources for them to get the scholarships and for them to get the good jobs and what have you. And that is when the economy could be turning down, because we're not even investing properly in the development of other sectors. Right now, gold is carrying a terrific price.
4,000 US.
But actual production of gold, while the revenues, we may report increased revenues, it is very unlikely for us to report increased production. I should say increased declaration. And so the investment that we need to see in the other sectors, agriculture especially, and the returns from it. Big farms don't employ a lot of people.
Yeah.
Don't create the mega farms, don't create the environment, the employment that we need. But the agro-processing, where is agro-processing? What we're seeing a lot of is packaging. They bring the milk from Ireland and other countries and they repackage in Guyana.
They have no vision, Beverly. They have no vision.
But the production, it's not being done.
They have no vision.
So listen to me. So I'm speaking directly to our farmers and our people in agriculture in regions 5 and 6. 5 years ago, the fisher folks complained that they were getting decreased catches. The minister got up and said that the FAO did a study and it's not related to the oil and gas industry. Never maybe the FAO or whoever it is. Not I don't know who, some person, they denied they did a study. So, but the reality is fishermen.
But David, not cutting you, David. We remember we asked for that study, and they could never produce the study that they were quoting.
He lied. So, but here's the reality. So, fishermen are telling you that they
absolutely
decrease thing. So here's what the government said they will do. They will create fish traps. You remember that?
Yeah.
And they took $1 billion out of the economy and said they're creating fish traps. Never heard another word about it. Next thing they said, all right, we will give you a one-off payment, fishermen a hardship thing. But the livelihood of our fisher folks has been decreasing. The hard time, they're catching less, they can't see the way. The government hasn't addressed that. You know what I mean? Then you come to the livestock. They brought in 2,000 black belly sheep, and they said they're giving these black belly sheep out to all things, and it will increase our sheep stock, and we'll go into exporting mutton. You hear when the whole cycle come there, you hear a thing about black belly sheep, because apparently the black belly sheep can't operate in Guyana. That's how, you know what I mean. But that's so. But that's what they do, you know. Rice is on the challenge in Region 5. You know,
yes.
we've in Region 5 and rest places. I mean, we've always said, listen to me, as a government, you have to build storage capacity. You have to
build silos.
Build silos. That's what they do all around the world. You know what I mean. So therefore, and there's a guaranteed minimum price for rice. So therefore, it's $4,000 a sack. If the millers, I mean, if the world market is over 4,000, the millers would, the millers pay. But if not, the government subsidizes it. Take these rice and put them in silos, right? And then we can now do added on projects and those things like that. But a farmer,
that's it.
A rice farmer will be able to plant. He has to decide if he's willing to plant for the minimum price of 4,000, because he's guaranteed. The government is guaranteed. If the millers are paying $380, the government will put in the extra $2, and out of that extra $2, the government will put the rice in silos to keep it, and we can preserve it. We can export it. You know what I mean? Look, Vince, you know PL 480. Every country, PL 480, ladies and gentlemen, is where we get our wheat from.
Mm-hmm.
The government of America does exactly what I'm saying here. They go, the wheat farmers, they buy their wheat farmers at a fixed price from the farmers. They buy the wheat, and then to make it not look as though they subsidize it, they sell it. They say that humanitarian gesture, we sell it cheap to the rest of the world. So that's where that's where we get our wheat from.
Yeah.
We can do that. And listen to me. Think about it, right? The Caribbean, I saw a notice some time ago that the Caribbean imports about, I think, 10 to 12 or even more $billion of products, food products. If the government buys the rice and we store it, the government can actually, because we're under the quoted, whereby
the market.
The market, we can sell rice cheaper. Pass it on to our colleagues. You can sell rice cheaper to Trinidad and those places and so forth. Because we as a government have already absorbed that price, we can sell it at cost. I mean, and over time, once you penetrate those markets, you now become the sole supplier of the market. You know what I mean? Everyone wins. But no, all they tell you is, I mean, we gonna subsidize this.
Even with this, the fertilizer that they're giving out to farmers, you getting so many complaints. Somebody seem to got to run in, somebody getting, other people not getting. There is no system of distributing aid to the farmers. And now they're talking, David, I want to take you back a bit to infrastructure. They're talking Lenora to Canal Number One road. I mean, like the president just went out there and probably got a brainwave. We have traffic congestion. Let's drop a road here. The same thing that you were talking about.
Yes. So you know,
they've latched on to that now.
I could remember as a minister visiting. I could always remember. I had the opportunity, the good fortune of going into Singapore, and there is a Ministry of Planning, and Singapore is a small island, so they could do that. But in the middle, in the foyer of the Ministry of Planning, there's like massive big room. There is a scale of the island, and there are models of what they would like to do in 10, 15, 25 years on. Right? So it transcends, well, of course, in the politics. So these are things we have to agree on. I've always said, let us know, we're a large country, we have a small population, working population, and we're feeling the effects of this ad hocery in which we're doing. So we want to decide, Region 6 will be the hub for, let's say, we'd always said oil and gas for Region 6 because close proximity to Suriname. Vince, you remember that because of course, Region 5, agriculture, deep water, Region 4, Region 3. And we work and we plan it out,
Yep.
But here was what we have. If you drive down the East Bank Road, there's wharfs popping up in the next door to a house. There's every single thing. In Houston, there's chemical storage facilities. The people carry them to court in residential areas. Totally unplanned. So when
schools close by,
close by. So when you decide how you going to build a road between Canal and this person this way, so why? Not can't just be traffic. It got to be linked to some sort of progressive some industry. Over in Region 3, they used to have the clay brick factory. Are you going to bring that back? You're going to be doing, I don't know.
Dairy production.
Are we going to move Region 3 and try and take away the rice production from Region 5 and 6 and move into Region 3? But you must have a plan. You must have an economic driver behind what you're doing, and everybody can benefit. But this ad hocery is what is dragging the country down. It's dragging down.
I want to address, because I'm glad that David brought it up, with this whole fish, the shortage of the dilemma with the fishing industry. And of course, getting back to this imaginary report that they claim or study that never existed. Here are the facts. It came from Exxon itself. Exxon studied and I can't remember which project it was, because when you're doing these EIAs, you have to have public meetings. And in one of the meetings, Mr. Jackson, who's a spokesperson for Exxon, he might, it sounds like if he's one of their technical people, he was explaining to them what's in the EIA. And guess what it has? It has that, because what they're doing, they're pumping water from the ocean. They've got a big inlet. So they're pumping millions to billions of gallons of water. They take it from the ocean, pump it into the reservoir to keep the pressure up, besides re-injecting from the gas. When they suck it, they're sucking, he said, they're destroying billions of fish eggs. He said it's in the report. He said that, and I can't remember it was which project. So multiply that by every single project. He said that. That's a fact. It was published in the newspapers, but nobody picked up on these type of things. He himself admitted, and on top of that, they're dumping the produced water. Remember, that's been one of our issues. Mm-hmm. They've been dumping that hot produced water instead of re-injecting it back into
Contribution.
the reservoir, because that's what they should be injecting into the reservoir. That's the standard practice. The water that comes up is very hot. It's 3 times the ocean water temperature. It has all kinds of toxic chemicals, mercury, lead, you just name it, and it's full of oil. You dump that into the ocean, you bound to destroy the ecology and the fish life and everything else. So it's a double whammy. You're dumping the water into the ocean that you're producing that you're supposed to re-inject. But in order to get water to re-inject, you're taking the ocean water and you're sucking all of those eggs, the fish eggs, the billions of fish eggs. So if you take away the eggs, you're not
No
gonna make
fish.
fish. That's and that's in the I mean so I don't care about them out of study. Exxon themselves said that. It's in their EIA. They said that.
Thank you, Dr. Vince. Guys, we've got probably like about just about 3 or 4 minutes more of program time, and I want us, David, I'm going to turn to you on this for a bit of a political discussion. Yesterday, regional chairpersons and vice chairpersons and councillors for the RDCs were taking their oath of office, nominating the regional chairs and vice chairs and so on. In Region 7, I think it is where the AFC has its sole council for this election cycle. But if you can quickly take us through what happened from Region 1 to 10.
Well, let's deal with Region 7 first. Win was the winner, the overall winner. I mean, Win got the most seats. We instructed our candidate that if it's the will of the people, do not interfere. The will of the people, the Region 7, the riverine areas and those things like that, they voted for Win. We will not be making any deals to usurp the will of the people, because we do think at the regional level. When there was in Region 8, I can tell you where the contentions were, because they weren't clear winners. In Region 8, Win got 7 seats, PPP got 7 seats, and APNU got 1 seat. And for some strange reason, well, not strange reason, we now know why, the APNU councillor voted with the PPP so that they give the PPP the chairperson in Region 8, and in return, the PPP give the APNU the vice chair, locking out Win and all the other parties. In Region 10, there was, that was one of the strangest. Win has 9 seats, APNU has 5, PPP has 3, and FGM, Amanzo Walton, this year's party, had 1. So all the other parties ganged up against Win, and so it's a tie. So it's 9-9. The Win councillor got 9, and the person nominated by the PPP, APNU, and FGM got 9 as well. So what happens in the case of a tie is that the minister will decide, she will pass the deciding vote between the 2 top foreigners, which is the one from Win and the one from APNU. It was a strange phenomenon, but it shows that maybe there was some discussions between APNU and the PPP, at least for sure in Region 8 and at least in Region 10. Because previously, in Region 8, and this is what you have to know, in Region 8, the PPP they could not affect the outcome, they could not affect it, and they just didn't vote. With 3 seats out of 18, the PPP could not, unless they colluded with somebody, and that's what they did. And then, of course, and the backlash, but apparently Win has said that there was an agreement with APNU and FGM that those 2 parties would support their candidate for the chairmanship in Region 10, and vice versa. Win would support the APNU's candidate for chairmanship in Region 4. What broke up the whole baby party, Beverly and Vince, is that the shenanigans in Region 10 happened early. So by the time the councillors, for Win councillors and all the other councillors heard what happened in Region 10, how everybody ganged up, Win decided not to vote at all. They abstained in Region 4, and that allowed the PPP, because they had a single, they had more votes than everybody, single most votes, to get the chairmanship in Region 4 for the very first time in the history since we've changed the regional thing. It's just highlights a couple of things that we say the FC. And I can say this is that without any fear of contradiction. We have always honored our agreements with any party. You know what I mean? We've always honored it. I mean, whatever we signed on to, we've always honored. And we will continue on, even though it may be unpopular. Certain persons may say so. I mean, I could recall in 2020, we honored our obligation to support APNU's person to be the regional chairman in Region 4. And they then turn around and stab us in our back. But we have said to as a party, we will honor our commitments to any other person. The ones we've given it as a party, we'll honor it. It shows that the level of we have to raise in collectively the level of political maturity in our discussions, and we have to stop thinking this is just as a question of political games. People would like to know that when a political party makes a promise or makes a commitment and makes a negotiation, and they honor it, irrespective of if, you know, I mean, whatever comes after, whatever sweetness comes after, because there must be political stability at some point in our country.
Thank you, David. Dr. Vince, David Patterson, thank you for being with me for just over an hour, I think a couple of minutes over an hour. And we will continue to monitor what is happening at the level of the regional democratic councils. To DTV, always so kind, so professional. Thank you guys over there. And so very importantly to our viewers, thank you for staying with us. And the Alliance for Change will be on next week as we continue to look at what is happening in our beloved country. Thank you again.